Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're looking at the missing ingredient in how we learn. The answer actually takes us back in time and challenges pretty much everything we assume about traditional schooling and professional development. We're going to break down some major historical shifts, look at the hard data, and see how elite institutions are completely rethinking education from the ground up. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. What if kindergarten was considered a literal threat to the government? Sounds crazy, right? But in 1851, the Prussian government actually feared that a scandalous new approach to education, introduced by a guy named Friedrich Froebel, might teach disobedience and lead straight to a peasant rebellion. And the name of this incredibly controversial school? It was called kindergarten.
To understand why it was actually banned, we have to contrast Froebel's approach with the state's. Froebel's kindergarten was built entirely around singing, dancing, gardening, painting, and just playing. It was this joyful, dynamic environment. But the Prussian model that was enforced to replace it, that consisted of a strict system of highly supervised classrooms with rigid, government-approved lessons. Basically, its defining characteristic was a harsh, impenetrable line separating learning time from playtime. They were seen as complete opposites, no mixing allowed. And we are absolutely still feeling the impact of that separation today. Think about the pre-industrial era. Children essentially learned everything through play. They roamed around, mimicked adults, and shared discoveries with their friends. But after that pivotal year of 1851, when Prussia enforced its rigid structure, well, that strict model went on to inspire public school systems literally all over the world. So this whole idea that play and learning are at odds with each other, it's actually a relatively modern invention.
Section 1. Toys as learning tools.
Now, despite the global dominance of that strict Prussian model, many educators held on to the core belief that play is actually the ultimate teacher. They developed these incredibly precise methods to keep self-directed learning alive. Take Montessori materials, for instance. These aren't just random toys. They're rigorously designed instruments, engineered to isolate and teach highly specific concepts. It's brilliant, really. Babies and toddlers explore the whole concept of dimension using fat wooden cylinders. Then they unlock complex spatial reasoning with these sets of stackable pink blocks. And eventually, older children literally physically grasp abstract concepts like height and length by working with specialized brown stairs and distinct red rods. But here's the catch. The tools alone aren't enough. The environment matters just as much. In these classrooms, the teacher's role completely shifts from being a lecturer to more of a guide. Instead of just spoon-feeding students the answers, teachers offer gentle guidance by asking targeted questions or maybe suggesting material-specific activities. Plus, these classrooms purposely mix different age groups and keep teacher-to-student ratios super low. This setup fundamentally encourages kids to explore the materials together and learn from each other, simulating that natural, pre-industrial way of gathering knowledge.
Section 2. Student-directed discovery.
So, while Montessori focuses heavily on beautifully engineered toys, the Reggio Emilia approach takes the concept of play and pushes it entirely into the hands of the students' organic curiosities. Basically, every single corner of the classroom is meticulously designed to reward exploration. Even when teachers do assign a formal project, they don't start with a boring lecture. They start with an open-ended question. For example, they might ask, hey, how do we make a model ship float or sink? From there, the teachers design the entire project around the students' own assumptions and their evolving interests. It turns their natural play into this deep investigative journey.
Section 3. Connecting the curriculum.
Whenever we talk about this level of freedom in education, a very predictable concern pops up. Does self-directed learning leave kids behind? And honestly, it's a perfectly valid point for skeptics to argue. I mean, if you give a child the freedom to direct their own learning based on what they find fun or interesting, won't they just naturally avoid the subjects they dislike? Like, if a kid loves art but absolutely hates math, doesn't self-directed play mean they just won't learn math, ultimately causing them to fall behind their peers in traditional rigid schools?
Well, here is the crucial point, and it's how educators ingeniously solve this exact problem. They use an interdisciplinary approach. You can kind of think of it as a Trojan horse technique, heavily utilized in project-based laboratory schools. A day might start with a seemingly fun activity, like solving a number puzzle. The underlying subject there is mathematics, which serves as the foundation for the project. But then they use the answers from that math puzzle to compose a piece of 3D art or music. See what they did there? By overlapping concepts through multiple connected projects, abstract ideas suddenly feel concrete, useful, and above all, deeply engaging. So no subject gets missed.
Achieving that seamless integration, however, requires immense, often completely unseen effort. Giving students this much agency means teachers have to constantly adapt to vastly different student needs on the fly. They're dynamically rearranging the room, safely redirecting attention, all while maintaining a playful environment. It is no small feat. It requires high emotional intelligence, a massive amount of behind-the-scenes prep time, and crucially, deep trust from both parents and the school administration to allow this non-traditional method to unfold. Section 4. Proof and lifelong play. All of that hidden work begs a really important question. Is the effort actually worth it? Well, a comprehensive 2023 review of over 30 independent studies comparing Montessori education to traditional schooling gives us a resounding answer. Play-based learning objectively outperformed traditional schools across the board. We're talking outperforming in language skills, outperforming in math learning, showing highly accelerated creativity development, and demonstrating superior social skills. The numbers completely validate that play is, without a doubt, a remarkably effective engine for rigorous learning. Now, let's fast forward a bit and see how this builds into the adult world, because these benefits extend far beyond early childhood. Right now, there is a massive shift happening in higher education. Elite universities are actively moving away from the strict, lecture-based learning inherited from that old Prussian model. Instead, they are pivoting rapidly towards long-term projects, roundtable discussions, and collaborative discovery. Take the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, for example. MIT has an initiative literally called Lifelong Kindergarten. They are taking this creativity-first approach and extending it to adult learners. MIT provides their university students with physical and digital tools, explicitly encouraging them to explore, experiment, and express themselves. And they're doing this using the exact same fundamental principles of self-directed play that Froebel championed over a century ago. And this brilliantly illustrates how we've truly come full circle. Today, some architecture and engineering students even use Froebel's special toys to hone their design principles and spatial reasoning. Think about that. The absolute brightest minds studying elite engineering and architecture at the university level are literally playing with the exact same wooden blocks that got kindergarten banned back in 1851. It proves definitively that it isn't just children who learn best through play. Which leaves us with a final provocative thought. If play builds better engineers at MIT, how can you add play to your work today? Whether you're learning a new language, tackling a complex project at your job, or simply trying to understand a new concept, remember that the rigid separation of work and play is just a relic of the past. Embrace your curiosity, find joy in discovery, and whatever you do, never stop playing. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope it changes how you approach your next big learning challenge.